Welcome to the Families of Character Show. I'm your host, Jordan Langdon, and as a wife, mom, and licensed clinical social worker, you get practical parenting stories, research-based parenting solutions, and most of all, support. Lean in and let yourself be inspired and reminded of the gifts you have as a parent. Let's jump right in. Welcome back, parents. You know, we always joke about how there's no handbook or manual for raising kids, right? Well, today I want to talk to you about 7 pitfalls to avoid in your role as a parent. And I want to encourage you just to lean in and take a listen, because I bet you'll be surprised that you're doing better than you think. So let's dive right in. And let me first remind you, if you aren't getting our weekly email newsletters on Tuesdays, please click the link in our show notes to sign up. And here's why. When you get our email newsletters, there are 2 primary components to them that will help you. First, the link to our newest podcast episode. Second, a free printable that accompanies our podcast episode. So for example, if you're receiving our emails already, you have a handy freebie in your inbox right now that you can print and use as a reflection guide. And if you just take 10 minutes to use it, you'll go from just hearing or listening to the content or learning about it to doing something about it. These free printables in our Tuesday email newsletters are meant to engage you in a deeper way that really motivates you for positive change. Honestly, this is the kind of stuff I loved doing with my own therapist, moving to action after processing something and then learning about the why behind whatever I was doing. Consider it free therapy or free coaching right in your email inbox. We are here to help. So just be sure to click the link in the notes of today's podcast and get signed up for those emails if you aren't already. Just hit pause on the episode right now and then scroll down to the bottom of the show notes and sign up before you forget. Okay, now that you're back, let's be reminded. No parent has it all figured out. There is no such thing as perfect parenting. But there are definitely ways we can screw up our kids, and that's just a fact. And I don't know about you, but those are the things I really want to know about. So what I've done is I've compiled a list of 7 pitfalls to avoid in parenting based on my husband and I's own personal experience as parents and on my 20 years experience as a licensed counselor. So these 7 pitfalls are legit. Okay, so in no particular order, the first pitfall in parenting is undermining your spouse's discipline or rescuing your kids from discipline because you disagree with your spouse in the moment. Now, I want you to think on this one for a minute. How have you undermined your spouse when he or she is disciplining your kids or discussing something that they are in trouble for? There are so many examples of this, but one is where dad is disciplining a kid by maybe talking sternly to them and is implementing a consequence. Like when a kid's moving too fast and knocks something over or spills something, and dad points out what he observed about their behavior and makes them clean it up. And then mom swoops in and cleans it up for the kid or tells the kid he or she doesn't have to clean it up, that she'll take care of it. This is an example of undermining your spouse when it comes to parenting. Another example is when you disagree with your spouse about the severity of consequences they're handing out, and you disagree and then take sides with your child right there in the moment. Guys, this is called splitting behavior, splitting, where you now have split off with your child to oppose your husband, this sort of 2 against 1 type of behavior. This has a significant negative impact on how your kids view your relationship with their other parent and then breaks up your united parental front. It doesn't mean you can't disagree with your spouse about discipline. And it definitely doesn't mean standing by while your spouse hits your child or is abusing them in a physical way. No, you have to intervene then. But if you disagree with your spouse, it's important to wait for the situation to end, again, unless it's abusive, and then ask to speak with your spouse in private so you can address your concern with them behind closed doors. Your spouse has the ability to go back and apologize if they see your point of view and change their mind. But if you don't take the time to address your concerns in private and you just blurt out your issue with your spouse in the moment, you will contribute to your child disrespecting their other parent, which causes even bigger problems in the future. So heed this rule. Do not undermine your spouse in a parenting moment. Only intervene if you would consider intervening with a complete stranger because the behavior of your spouse is either abusive or neglectful. So a question to ask yourself is this: what is one scenario that happens frequently when I undermine my spouse? And if I think about it, what is the bigger issue I need to talk to them about when it comes to our differences in parenting that may help us be on the same page? So that's pitfall number 1, undermining your spouse. Okay, number 2 is overscheduling. We all get into this, right? Where we want to do all the things. We want to sign up our kids for all the sports and all the music and all the things. And then we're saying yes to all the things and regretting it when we're going from one thing to the next without any downtime. So I want you to think about a week when everyone in your family agreed that the amount of kids' activities and your workload were reasonable and you had time for connection and rest. How could you block time in your weekly calendar for intentional rest in order to say yes to the things that matter and no to the things that add stress to your family life? I'll tell you, one of the things that has saved us as a family is literally blocking time on our family calendar, and we call it lockdown. We time block it from Friday after work until Monday morning so we can protect that time. And we say no when we are asked to do things during those 3 days, because without being intentional about downtime, we find ourselves chronically exhausted and resent the fact that we never get adequate rest or connection time with our family. So for us, we know we can't have activities going 4 weeks in a row. We just need a hard stop to look forward to. So 1 weekend a month is family time at home to recharge, that lockdown time. So ask yourself, what is the best week that we've had? Or what is a time where we felt like we had a good balance going on of activities and rest and connection with our family? And then make a commitment to block that downtime on your schedule so that you have that every single month. Pitfall number 3, financial shielding. Excluding kids from conversations and activities that involve family finances. Okay, this is a problem. Why do we consider financial shielding a pitfall? Because your child is going to live on their own one day. They're going to need money to live on. They're going to need savings to understand whether they should buy something or hold off. Finances are an everyday thing in family life. And the more exposure they have to the reality of finances, the better prepared they're going to be. So a great way to get the whole family involved in finances is to have a simple conversation about buying what you need and holding off spending on things you want for 30 days. Make it a challenge. Get the conversation started around what a true necessity is versus a want. We do this probably twice a year, and usually it comes after we get back from vacation, where it's like, we need to tighten up the purse strings a little bit here and regain some control over our spending and what we need versus what we want. So You make it a challenge, and then every week during your family huddle or family meeting, you talk about how many times each one of you wanted to spend money, but you denied yourself because the family prioritized this goal. And I remember last year we did this after coming home from vacation, and I was shocked at how many times I thought about spending on something I wanted versus needed in a single day. I'm not kidding. I had one day where I thought about stopping for a coffee, and then I thought about running through drive-through for a quick lunch, popping into Target. This was all in just one day. Well, think if you add that up, 20 days in a row, or, 17 days out of a month, that adds up to a lot of extra money spent. So the 30-day challenge in the finances really helps you become aware of your spending, and it helps your kids see how it is truly possible to live for 30 days without the extras. And it bonds you together as a family. It gives you a common goal to share and work towards. So the point about this pitfall, financial shielding, is this: include your kids in conversations about money. Think out loud in front of them. Help them understand that it's a part of life, and the more they understand about how to manage it, the more responsible they will be, which will help them thrive. If you want to check out some more information on developing financial literacy in your kids, I want you to check out episode 48 of our podcast. Okay? And then ask yourself, what is one easy thing to talk to our kids about on a regular basis that deals with spending, saving, or tithing or giving? If we included our kids in a weekly chat about what we're saving for or how much things cost, how could this benefit our kids in the future? That's something I want you to think about. Okay, pitfall number 4, using screens as a substitute parent. All of us can be guilty of this at some point, right? This is a serious pitfall to avoid. And if your kids are very young, please heed this advice now, even if none of your other parent friends are. We did a huge study, Families of Character did, with a research company last year. And what we found is that screens have become the new substitute parent. This means your kids have a stronger attachment bond to their screen than you, that they believe the internet more than they believe you. This means their primary influence is not their parents. Instead, it's whatever they are most attached to on their screen. Scary. So here's the deal. When counseling and coaching parents, I always ask additional questions when a parent complains that their kids are addicted to TV or addicted to video games. I ask things of the parent like, what are you doing when your kids are using screens? 9 times out of 10, the parent is allowing the screen time to get a break from their kid, or so that they can get some work done if they work from home or are trying to make up work at home, or they aren't home because they're away at work, and the screen becomes the sitter. And unfortunately, this happens for weeks and months, and it just continues to go on because the child is pacified. The child is quiet and is satisfied. So everyone seems happy. And so then what happens is that 30-minute window you are going to allow, right? Putting some parameters around their screen time, that time gets away from you. And the 30-minute window you tried to limit your child to turns into 3 hours. And then a very angry encounter with your kid when you realize how much time has passed. You're actually upset at yourself for letting it go on this long, but you take it out on your child. And kids are not going to come to you with this internal regulator and say, hey, Mom, my 30 minutes is up, so I'll be shutting down the tablet so I can read a book now. Oh, man, we wish they had that kind of internal regulator, right? But they don't. And so the problem comes when all of a sudden people realize the screen time has gone overboard, and then you just want to throw that screen out the window altogether because the scale has been tipped so significantly. So then as parents, again, we become reactive and angry, and our kids become super confused because the very thing they've been doing for the past few weeks or few months every day has now become forbidden or outlawed completely. And it's a rip the Band-Aid off type of feeling for them. So here's the deal. If you're frustrated by how much time your kid is spending on screens, take inventory and ask yourself, how much does each child spend on screens each day? And be realistic. Pediatricians ask this when we take our kids in for their annual well visit, right? How much time does each child spend on a screen each day? Then ask yourself, what am I, the parent, doing when our children are watching TV, playing games on screens, or playing video games? Figure out what it is you're doing when you're allowing their screen time. And then ask yourself, how can I be more intentional about engaging my kids in non-screen activities? Ask yourself, is this an issue where we need to hire a babysitter during those hours? Because I'm actually trying to get work done and I can't possibly observe what they're doing on their screens or how much time they're on screens and doing something active instead. Or, could I set out 3 crafts or board games for them to choose from so they have some options that aren't screens available to them? Or maybe we need to consider getting rid of devices in our home or on grocery trips. Instead of giving them the phone in the grocery store, maybe you say, we're not doing that one thing anymore. Or, you know what, enough of the tablet. We've gone overboard with this and we're just not going to upgrade the next time we need to. Or we're going to just put it away and be done with it and kind of start from scratch. We did that ourselves. Okay. So that's what I want you to think about. Just, you want to be the primary influence over your kids. You want them to be able to use executive functioning skills like planning and being able to cope during unscheduled and unstructured time. So take an inventory of the screen time. Also, we have a couple episodes on our podcast that address this very issue. One of them is episode 13 with Dr. Leonard Sachs. It's actually our #1 most popular and most downloaded episode. And Dr. Sachs, he's just brings it home. He's an expert on parenting. He's a family physician and a licensed psychologist. And he talked in episode 13 all about the effects of screens on kids from a research-based perspective. So you will understand the why behind making changes with the screen time. Also, episode 29 of our show is called Screen Time Alternatives with age-based recommendations. So if you're looking for some ideas, some solutions to non-screen activities, check out episode 29 so that you can get a list of age-based recommendations for your kids. Okay, so that was number 4. The number 5 pitfall to avoid is being authoritarian. Authoritarian parenting means that the priority for you as a parent with your children is obedience and discipline. Now listen, this too is a very serious pitfall. I feel like the generation before mine, the baby boomers and their parents, subscribe to more of an authoritarian style of parenting, which means there's this clear division between adult and child. And the focus is on discipline and control, or obedience and discipline, versus limit setting with connection to your child. See, every generation kind of swings the opposite way of the previous one. It's just how we humans behave. And it's been this way for thousands of years. So if your parent was authoritarian, kind of my way or the highway, obedience at the expense of everything else, you will be more likely to be a side-by-side friend with your child because you're out from underneath the thumb of that authority and you want nothing to do with that type of parenting yourself. Because listen, you've rebelled or you've taken back your power in a sense. Or if that's all you know as a parent, the authoritarian style, and you believe, hey, I turned out okay with that type of parenting style, you might believe that you also should demand obedience from your kids too, because that seemed to work for your parents, even though you didn't love it, maybe growing up. Now listen, Dr. Tim Zittel talked about this idea of parents being more focused on their kids being good kids, meaning they obey, are quiet, and never challenge their parents, in episode 23. And that episode is called Because I Told You So, Obedience versus Understanding. And that's episode 23. So check it out. This is a pitfall you want to avoid: authoritarian parenting. I want to tell you a story, okay? I met a mother a few months ago, and her kids are teenagers now. She's a very type A person, super organized, very intentional. A very intentional mother from the moment her kids were born. She conditioned them to clean up after themselves, to do chores around the house, to be on time, to do all the things you want your kids to do. But with tears in her eyes, she said, "Jordan, I've made more chore charts than you can even imagine. And my kids have done every chore and every project around our house. They've never been late to a thing in their life, but I'm just realizing now I've lost them." She said, "I've lost their souls. They don't have a relationship with me. They've done these things for years because I've told them they have to, but they don't do them because they understand the benefits of doing them. I focus most on checking the box, doing the thing because I said so, versus engaging them to help them experience the benefits of those things and focusing on truly understanding because of their experience." And she said, "I think it might be too late. I'm worried, really worried about my relationship with my kids." And at that point, you guys, I just suggested she not consider another chore chart or organizational tool, but instead consider full transparency and vulnerability with her kids. Tell them she's sorry. Tell them of her new realization and how what she once thought was the right way to parent hasn't left much space for them to really question things, to think for themselves, or to understand the why behind what she has conditioned them to do all these years. I encourage her to focus on rebuilding the relationship with her teens by engaging them on their turf, by kind of putting her own agenda aside and asking them what they like to do. And then gently just asking if she can join them in that thing, whether it is playing a video game with them or going to look at high-end cars or whatever it is they're interested in. Parents, it's never too late to connect with your kids. If you are a type A authoritarian parent, your aim needs to be moving more towards relationship building and less on obedience and discipline. Don't worry, you will not be too friendly with your kids. You do not have to worry about that. If you're a type A authoritarian type of parent, you're never going to be way too lenient. It's not your nature. But you will build a bond with your kids, which ultimately will help when they start trying things on their own. And then they have that safe place to come back to where they know they won't be judged or criticized, but that you will give them a soft place to land. And we'll talk about what they are experiencing and offer sound advice if they ask for it. That gives them the middle ground between my way or the highway and childish best friend parenting that they need. You see, two things have happened. One, parents thought kids should be 100% obedient and never question their parent. And then we swung the other way, where we thought we should befriend our kids and join our kids at whatever age and stage they were going through, becoming childish parents ourselves. So what I'm suggesting is that we attempt to find the middle ground between these two extremes. We be the guardrails for our kids, or the training wheels, if you will, until they are able to make reasonable decisions. We keep an adult eye on them and course correct when we need, but we also allow them to make mistakes they can afford to make, because that's how they learn and develop that deeper understanding about things. Listen, episode 50 of our podcast with Montessori teacher Pauline Meert is titled The 4 Planes of Child Development. And this episode is packed with practical ways for parents to meet their child in the developmental stage they are in, and then foster growth and understanding to avoid that pitfall of becoming an authoritarian parent. So check out episode 50. And then just to think a little bit and reflect, ask yourself, am I prioritizing my kids being obedient over teaching them and showing them so they understand? And how can I come alongside my kids and mentor them through things versus demanding they comply or just dishing out a quick consequence? Okay, pitfall number 6 to avoid in parenting: standing for nothing. We can't stand for nothing. What do I mean by this? Well, what generally happens for people when they start having kids is that they are literally so caught up in the day-to-day that all of a sudden 10 years have passed by and they haven't really grabbed onto an identity as a family. And while that might not seem like that big of a deal, if you don't put some thought and some intention around what you want for your family, what tends to happen is that everything becomes important. And then you're bumbling about trying all the things and you just sort of get tossed about the sea without any real direction. And then life happens to you. And you'll know if you're in this camp, if you find yourself kind of wishing you had a better marriage or wishing you could do what the Joneses do, envying what other couples and families are doing. If you can identify several families you admire or even follow on social media and you find yourself constantly wishing your family could be different, you might have fallen into the pitfall of standing for nothing. So I want you to take a few minutes and just think, what is one thing that sets us apart from other families on our block? Like if all the families in our neighborhood were thrown together on a giant grassy field, how would anyone know who the Smiths are? Or another way to discover your identity is to ask yourself, what is one thing our entire family loves to do together and prioritizes so we can have quality time with each other? Maybe it's skiing or hiking. Maybe it's volunteering or going to church and having brunch afterwards. Maybe it's neighborhood barbecues in the summer, whatever. Just ask yourself, what is one thing our entire family loves to do together and prioritize it so that we can have that quality bonding time with each other? And if you're looking for something more than just identifying what sets you apart from other families, check out episode 44 of our show, where I interviewed my 8-year-old daughter about the benefits of a family meeting. And at the beginning of the episode, she recited our family mission statement, where she's outlining the main categories that we prioritize in our family, giving us pointed directions so we know how to align our behavior and our activities with what we believe in and want for our family. That's episode 44. Okay, the final pitfall in parenting to avoid. Number 7, calendar chaos. You know, I was just thinking about this the other day as I was looking at my calendar for work and spending so much time organizing the calendar. You know, calendar is such a high priority at work in our careers, right? It's the way we manage our time effectively. We schedule things and then we make sure that we communicate effectively with people on our team about what we're doing, because that's the best way to get everyone on board, to pitch in and help out and accomplish the goals we set out for our business or our organization. But the pitfall parents fall into is pure chaos when it comes to the calendar. In most families, only one person is managing all the tasks on the family calendar, and 80% of the time, it's mom. So what's the problem with this? Well, often we joke around about kind of how mom is the, quote, social director. And it's true that usually one parent takes the lead on managing social activities or managing the calendar. But the problem comes when everyone else in the family is dependent on mom or dad, the social director, for their information or for their necessities when it comes to sports or music lessons or traveling. And then what happens? The social director gets burnt out. They feel like a team of one, and then resentment builds. You may even think, if you're listening to this and think, hey, I'm the social director in my family. I'm the one that manages the calendar. You may think, it's okay. I'd rather do that. That way I have control. That way I know what's going on all the time. The problem with that thinking is that, yes, while you have control, everyone else in the family is forming a dependency on you. And so you're enabling them to be dependent on you for information instead of using those executive functioning skills where they can start planning and start preparing for their own activities on the calendar. And so when you get burnt out from managing everything yourself, even though you think you want to be doing this, and trust me, I have experience. I have a whole story you can listen to in another episode about this very thing. You start barking out orders. Been there, done that. My kids used to scatter like cockroaches when it was time to go somewhere because that's how it went at our house. I would just bark out orders because I was the only one that knew what was going on. So here's how to avoid calendar chaos. Post the family calendar where everyone can see it. If you use an electronic calendar on your phone like I do, plug it into your TV or cast it onto your TV once a week and review it with your kids. And if you have a spouse, with your spouse as well. Go through the upcoming week and show them what's going on. You're still going to be leading the meeting, but you're helping them to see what is going on, the days of the week, the date, the times things happen, and then leave time for them to ask questions and to come up with ideas for how they can be prepared for their own activities and how they can help each other out. Make this a weekly thing. And then each morning, just take 2 minutes to write out the schedule of the day on a daily calendar on your fridge or somewhere where everyone can see. Nothing fancy. Just start with the morning time. Write down the time when things are happening and a general name of the activity. You can put this on a blank piece of paper and just stick a magnet to it and post it on your fridge. And then when your kids ask about the schedule, or even your spouse, remind them to go to the daily calendar and look. This will help them get oriented to the day, week, and month, and will also help them get a better idea of time management and how much time they need to get prepared for things. And you will notice how you go from feeling like a team of one, managing the chaos of the calendar, to a competent team where everyone is pitching in and helping out to make sure the family accomplishes the goals they have in front of them for the upcoming week. So if this idea of calendar chaos has you scratching your head, wondering if your family is functioning in calendar chaos, ask yourself, am I aware of the details of the activities on my family calendar on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis like I am at work? And if the answer is yes, who else is equally aware or also aware and contributes to making plans for transportation, childcare, appointments, etc.? If the answer is no, how could you involve yourself more and pitch in and help out to condition everyone in the family to take a bigger role in knowing what's going on and preparing for what they need to do day to day? And another question to just ask yourself and to think about is, how could I engage my kids to look at the activities of the day, week, and month? Guys, the easiest way to do this is to just couple the daily, weekly, and monthly calendar review to something you already do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It's called habit stacking. So you take a habit you already have, for example, in the mornings, eating breakfast. Okay, so that's when you review the daily routine. Review your weekly routine every Sunday evening when people are preparing for school and the work week ahead, or maybe after church if that's something you do once a week on Sundays. And then review the monthly calendar the last day of every month. Make it that simple. On the last day of each month, you huddle up as a family and look at the calendar for the following month. Guys, for more on managing calendar chaos, I want you to check out episode 2. It's called No More Team of One. And then episode 10 is called How to Implement a Weekly Family Meeting. And it goes more into that. Okay, I know I threw a lot at you there. This may be one you want to go back to and listen to again, or open your email and print off that freebie that we put in your email where you can reflect on these very questions I ask in the podcast and put some pen and paper to it. Okay, so let's just do a quick review of the 7 pitfalls to avoid in parenting. Number 1, undermining your spouse's discipline. Number 2, overscheduling. Number 3, financial shielding. Number 4, using screens as a substitute parent. Number 5, being an authoritarian parent. Number 6, standing for nothing. And number 7, calendar chaos. Parents, I know you want what's best for your kids. There's no manual. There's no book that tells us how to raise exceptional kids that will thrive. But there is advice that we can take. There are active steps that we can take to be intentional parents who build up the character of our kids and give them the skills they need to be happy, healthy, successful adults. Listen, there are so many things that you are doing well in your parenting. And I want to commend you for those things, because by listening to the podcast every week, by reading our emails, by purchasing our products like the kids journal called The Best Me I Can Be, and getting your kids engaged in non-screen activities that help build them up and inspire them to be honest and organized and respectful and responsible and forgiving kids, you are giving them the best chance at life. And so I want you to continue these things. If you have questions about what you hear on the podcast, please don't hesitate to email and put your thoughts out there, or join our private Facebook group, the Thrive Community by Families of Character. Search up the Thrive Community by Families of Character on Facebook and join the group. Get in there, ask questions, see what's being talked about in the group of like-minded parents. Listen, guys, we're on all the social media channels. We are available to email you back. And we are committed to providing continued resources for your family to grow in character. So check us out at familiesofcharacter.com. And I'm going to catch you on the next episode of the Families of Character Show. Take care.